Hello, everybody. Good afternoon, and some instances, good morning and good evening, depending where you're joining us from. We're really excited and privileged to have you this afternoon. Welcome to our Ready Together session. And those that don't know me, my name is Alistair Mokoena, country lead for Google South Africa. And I'm joined by my colleagues as well as our partners from Forrester. We've got a great lineup ahead today. Kerry, who leads our agency business, who all of you know, will be talking about the changing dynamic. And then we'll delve into key research findings from Forrester, and we'll wrap up with a great panel discussion, which is going to be riveting. So, future prosperity for any business and any industry depends on digital transformation. I think it's trite to say that digital technology is all over our lives. We deal with its impact every single day. It's largely driven by the growth of mobile. As we know, consumers are no longer sitting at home waiting for linear TV or reading through a print magazine or actually listen to like a radio ad. They're everywhere. They're on multiple platforms. In fact, I think about 10 years ago, we used to say as marketers that consumers are exposed to about 4,500 messages a day. But today, with the proliferation of content, I think it's about 10,000 messages. But I'll very quickly touch on some of the insights that I picked up. I think I've had a few conversations with some of the agency leads, and I spent about 3 years doing a PhD study on the on the impact of digital disruption on the agency business model, and I think there's been interest to share some of those insights. So here we go. As we know, barriers to entry have actually gone down because of technology. I think anybody can now enter into the space. We're seeing a lot of small, nimble, agile outfits coming in, creating competition. We're seeing tech companies getting into the media space. We're seeing consulting firms playing a leading role. Also, from a client perspective, there's been some insourcing. The media landscape, as we know, has fragmented, and there's some question marks around the efficacy of traditional media channels if they're not used in collaboration with digital platforms. So I think what's really clear is that digital transformation challenges business models, and I think it's incumbent on all business leaders to be thinking about how do we retool, reskill, upskill, and really energize our businesses to take advantage of the promises of digital technology. So just some highlights from my research. The first one will look at impact on the consumer landscape. I think we know that marketing today is all about creating experiences, memorable, sticky customer experiences. If you're in the service industry, it's about frictionless experiences. And I think, we went from an era of mass broadcasting where we're just kind of spraying and praying and, kind of hoping for maybe 60% reach and, three plus frequency. But now because of technology, we're actually able to customize, we're actually able to personalize at scale. And I think what we've also seen is that consumer behavior has really changed. The multiple platforms that consumers are playing on at the moment, a typical consumer will be watching 3 different screens at the same time. And how do we get to them and actually deliver, memorable content becomes a challenge. And technology today allows us to actually have a feedback loop. If you think back to the traditional comms model, where you literally just had a sender and a receiver and a message in between, there was no interactive channels. Consumers couldn't respond. Consumers could not create their own content. It was very difficult to generate sort of sticky relationships where consumers become advocates and also brand champions. And I think what's actually happened is that digital tech and social media has meant that the fears of, we're actually able to influence consumers in every part of their customer decision journey. Consumers are forever researching, and how we deliver content at the right time, right place actually matters. So what's happened to the marketing landscape? I think what we've seen is that experience is now everything. And then we also seen that it's really important to be able to matter at every part of the customer decision journey. If you think of a typical conversion funnel, from awareness all the way to sort of advocacy, what content do we serve? And also how do we respond and optimize in real times? I think what's also important is that there's a realization that businesses are asking for ROI from marketing and less for fame in terms of creative awards. So how do we ensure that conversations are really focused on business impact and not just, sort of becoming famous? And I think if you look at the media landscape, also lots and lots of changes. I think media buyers believe that the coming together of digital and traditional is the only way forward. We all know that we are exposed to lakes and lakes of data, but the challenge here is how do we use the data? How do we optimize around customer objectives? How do we integrate the data? And I think, you know, typically, I think, many media owners will tell you that they're sitting between 5 and 10 different data sources, whether it's CRM data, social media data, mobile data, data from site analytics, app subscription data, and so on. And how do you actually bring them together? Because I think the holy grail in marketing is basically shaped around two parts. One is single customer view, and of course customer lifetime value, and all of that comes from being able to mine this data effectively. And I think we know that siloed organizations are still a challenge out there. How do we break down the silos? How do we ensure that we have one single source of truth? How do we ensure that we lift skill levels, whether it's analytical skills, whether it's actually getting, tech built into how we actually do everything. Automation is a big enabler. So I think all those things are actually facing us today. There's also been a trust deficit across the board, consumers trusting brands less, advertisers trusting agencies less. There's been things like ad fraud, there's been brand harm, rebates discussions, effectiveness discussions, transparency issues and truth. And I think also recently privacy issues are at play. And I think what's also clear is that there's a serious digital skills shortage across the continent. We need to have more of our planners skilled on digital. We need to look at the sort of complementary nature between traditional and digital going forward. Yes, I know that there's a lot of investment required in terms of tech and skills and all of that, but I think the future relies on sort of our ability to really reimagine how we do things every day. And I think what's also clear is that some clients are now tinkering with doing media in-house, which is obviously a challenge to the sustainability of media agencies. There's lost revenue, there's also a war for talent and so on. So the competition is hotting up, and the only way to survive is to disrupt yourself. And I think if you look at the ad industry itself, yes, we're also seeing insourcing of creative studios. I think Unilever were first of the blocks. We've also seen recently SAB Miller also have their own internal creative studio of about, I think, 150 people. And then we're also seeing that production services are coming in-house. And really all of this is driven by the need to improve profitability. It's driven by the role of procurement, teams coming in and saying, we can actually do this thing for much cheaper. Consulting firms are also on the prowl. We've seen, the likes of Accenture buying big creative houses and actually, adding creative services to the work that they're already doing at a C-suite level. And then I think what's also happening is that marketers are now starting the planning phase of their strategy based on how, they're actually able to mine big data. So lots of changes on the horizons, and I think agencies realize that unless they build new competencies, unless they partner with tech companies, unless they become a lot more agile in their thinking, it's going to be very, very difficult for them to face the future with confidence. So yeah, technology is no longer nice to have. It's no longer something you can relegate to the IT department. In fact, for the longest time, a digital strategy ran parallel to a business strategy. Today, we talk about a digital business strategy, which is all-encompassing. And I think CEOs are realizing that they can't afford to outsource all the digital business strategy thinking to the chief digital officer or the CTO or CIO. CEOs have to be leading the charge. Change management is a big part of, tech adoption. So I think it starts from the top. Also, I said that agencies are facing challenges from new agile, leaner, flatter teams that are actually able to come and compete very, very easily using technology, using automation to scale very quickly. And I think what's also clear is that the skills required are changing, because let's face it, capabilities required today are different from what was required 5 years ago. Now you hear organizations talking about bringing in technologists, bringing in IT specialists, bringing in consultant types, bringing project managers who come from industries different from the creative world. Storytellers, copywriters, creative people will always be required. But now you're looking at entrepreneurs who are able to be very, very nimble when it comes to growing the business and also making decisions very quickly. And then I think also data scientists, because data is sort of the new oil, as we call it today. So I guess my final thoughts are that unless agencies are willing to partner with tech companies to enhance their use and understanding of technology, it's going to be very, very difficult to remain competitive going forward. So thanks. With that, I'm going to hand over to our very own Kerry, who will be talking about the change dynamic. Thanks, Kerry.
Thank you so much, Alistair. And for those of you that do not know me, my name is Kerry and I head up the agency team at Google South Africa. Been with the company for 7 years now, and I lead business engagement and digital transformation with our agency partners. So firstly, Alistair, some fascinating findings. In fact, it's Dr. Alistair, thanks to your PhD. There's a lot that stood out to me, but of course, what really rung home for me was that the time for rapid digital transformation is now. And certainly the entire ecosystem has been impacted, as he showed us in his recent slides. But amongst all these daunting realities that Alistair just shared with us, along came the year of 2020. And while some may say that it broke a lot of things, what I think also happened is it created an opportunity for us to hit the reset button for the agency-client relationship. I'm hugely passionate about the topic of digital marketing transformation. And I truly believe that, and have seen firsthand, that as a South Africa media and advertising industry, we can and do drive best-in-class digital transformation with our clients. And in many cases, with agencies leading the charge and taking their customers on this journey. But of course, this is coupled with some level of skepticism. As locally, many brands have been quite slow to pull together the right teams to truly own this. And the agency's role in digital marketing transformation has largely been undefined and uncertain. And I think there's a massive and untapped opportunity for agencies in this space. If you look on my screen, there's a couple of headlines, local, global headlines. When we look at what's happening or what the press is talking about with agencies and clients, particularly in the times of COVID. And there's a lot of polarizing views, as you can see up on my screen. On the one hand, and to Alistair's point, suggestions that the old operating model of agencies simply cannot work going forward. Whilst there is some level of optimism, as I share, where we can see that there is an opportunity for agencies to take the lead with their clients and take advantage of this reformed relationship and way of doing things. So for brands and agencies, this combined impact of 2020, where there was devastating effects on healthcare, both economic and societal upheaval. What this has actually done is it's intensified the importance of digital marketing to drive growth. And digital is not, or digital marketing at least, is not just there to drive short-term campaign metrics and KPIs. Really what it can do is actually help you as a business to understand the impact on your bottom line. As a precursor to the Forrester research that we will be speaking about in a couple moments, I wanted to chat through 3 key points that I think are really important when thinking about digital transformation as an agency and for your customers. The first point I want to make is that I think we know for certain that all these changes have really complicated our basic way of doing business, and particularly for the brands that we work with. And what's happened is that they've had to reconsider how they do things, all the way from their product strategy to their marketing strategy, channel strategy, and everything in between. And what they're really crying out for is the need for strategic partners who can help them keep pace with all these changes that are happening. And of course, to take them on this journey of digital transformation. Secondly, is that clients' needs have become a lot more complex. And the opportunity here for agencies is to further prove their effectiveness as brands' needs become more complex and help them to drive more measurable outcomes. Alistair mentioned earlier all the changes that are happening, for example, with privacy. How can you, and what is your role as an agency to take your customer on this journey and prepare them for what's next? Because as you all know, these changes to privacy and measurement will have an impact not just on media, but how businesses will invest in digital marketing going forward. And last but not least, in keeping with the theme of complexity, is that What agencies need to do is they need to continually build up new skill sets needed, exploring new capabilities, because obviously as client needs become more complex, so then do agencies need to make sure they're keeping up with this complexity. But I think the biggest opportunity is to see this as a business opportunity for you, and out of these needs, create service offerings that you can actually charge your customers for, and in a way guide them through their journey of digital marketing transformation. Agencies need to accelerate their support of brands today. But at the same time, you need to think how you yourselves are going to future-proof your businesses. And of course, as Google, we really believe that we can be your future-ready partner to help you get ready for what's next. And whether it's through utilizing our media technology solutions, measurement or insights tools, or even our digital marketing maturity surveys for advertisers and brands, these solutions can certainly aid you on your journey. And of course, I work with many of you on the call. We'd love to chat further post this session. I certainly don't want this to be the last time that we're discussing this topic. So and the reason why we're here today is because Google last year commissioned Forrester Consulting to look at the current state of the agency-client relationships. So we are so excited today to be joined by Jay Pattersall, who is Forrester's expert on creative media marketing and in-housing agencies. And he really spends all his time helping CMOs and business leaders make sense of the complex and ever-changing services landscape surrounding advertising, marketing, and customer engagement. Jay draws from 20 years of experience in advertising and digital marketing. He's also worked on agency side, covering most loved brands like General Motors, Goodyear Tire, Lenovo, AB InBev, Radio Shack, Mini, USA, and many, many more. And last but not least, and why we have Jay here today, is he has extensive experience in qualitative and quantitative market research. So without further ado, I'm going to hand over to Jay to take us through both his findings and really incredible insights for agencies.
Thank you, Carrie. Thank you, Alistair. Couldn't ask for a more thoughtful and thorough understanding of the marketplace as a setup here. And thank you all for joining us this afternoon. As Carrie said, I'm Jay Pattersall, and I'm Forrester's principal analyst for agencies. And of course, I'm thrilled to be here with you all today. For those of you that are less familiar with us, Forrester is a technology and a business consultancy and research company, and we work with business and technology leaders to help develop what we call customer-obsessed solutions, customer-obsessed or customer-centric vision, strategy, and executions that are all about driving growth. And certainly in the last year, it's been a lot about recapturing growth as well. But on the agency side, the part of the business that I'm responsible for, and the part of the industry that I look into, the agency piece of it, and as a former strategist, as Carrie was alluding to, my role is to serve both sides of this equation and to help our marketing clients and our business clients understand the capabilities and the offerings and the strengths and the weaknesses of agencies, and then to help our agency clients, of which we have several, understand the needs of the marketer. And the idea is that we create a much more harmonious ecosystem by helping serve the needs of both. And we do this through all of our research, thousands of consumers that we survey each year, and business leaders that we survey each year, a series of lots of qualitative research and partnerships with different trade organizations that are very unique in the way that they're positioned. And it gives us a very deep understanding of technology and media and marketing and business overall. And so, with all of this as a backdrop, Google came and commissioned us to help understand how agencies and how marketers can plan for future success. And so the research that we set out to understand was to essentially understand three different things, or four different things: the immediate and long-term range of what marketers' needs are and brands' needs will be. And of course, this was set out, in a pre-pandemic context, and I'll come back to that. The agency's readiness to meet those needs and help evolve themselves in order to meet clients' needs. Specifically, we retooled the research to understand the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic on how those priorities might be changing. And then lastly, to develop a strategy that could help further the industry and best meet the needs of marketers and agencies as it relates to agencies being able to serve and marketers being able to grow. So in order to do this, the methodology that we undertook was to look at two different samples and to run two different parallel surveys. And so in order to answer these questions, myself and in conjunction with a partner at Forrester Consulting, we spoke to over 500 C-level VP leaders of digital branding, creative performance, social media agencies. And then we spoke to over 300 C-level VPs in marketing and digital and technology on the brand side. And both of these sample surveys were in countries like France and Germany and Italy, Israel, the Netherlands, Poland, Russia, Spain, the United Arab Emirates, and the UK. And as I mentioned before, important to remember that we did this in a pre-COVID period in February, and we're actually fielding a lot of this research in January and February of 2020, and then used a recontact study post-May, starting in May and moving forward, to get a sense for how the pandemic had shifted the priorities. Important to note that we have a great number of countries represented in this data, and actually have since moved on to some different regions in the Americas as well, and we're seeing a lot of consistency. And so I say that because we don't see parts of EMEA represented in this actual data set, but I believe it to be very representative on a generalized basis, meaning that you're likely seeing a lot of the similar patterns and phenomena in your marketplace. So with all of that as a little bit of a backdrop as to what we did and when we did it, let's talk about, most importantly, what we found. And first and foremost is that it's really clear from the data that brands and agencies both prioritize strategies that can drive growth. And the pre-pandemic perspective of this was really clear. For example, brands indicated, 82% of brands and brand leaders had indicated to us that what they're looking for from an agency is to be a strategic partner. And 77% of clients working brand side indicated that customer first strategies is the role that they see that their agencies providing them. And delightful news, the data also reinforces that agencies are quite like-minded when it comes to this. That 81% see that their role is to help meet their brand needs for very customer-centric strategies, and 77% indicate that it's very important for them to be able to prove a commercial impact of their campaigns in order to demonstrate their effectiveness for their clients. There we go. It's taking its time to advance. And looking even further into this, what we see when we look at the impact of the pandemic in comparing the two data sets is that the pandemic has really only amplified this this anxiety for growth. And in fact, I would characterize it as pre-pandemic, it was about pursuing and maintaining, and then post-pandemic, it was about setting up the plans to reclaim growth. And the data that helps us understand this in particular is this comparison. And it looks like some of the words are cut off, so I'll read it out for you. And the comparison is that we asked marketers what their selection criteria for their agencies would be now and in the future. And if you look at the dark green is essentially the kind of the current view, or look at it as pre-pandemic based upon the timing that we specified this data being collected. And then the light green view is post, or in the future. And you can see that pre-pandemic in the dark green, that it was things like innovation or innovative capabilities of the agency, the level of service that was being given at the agency, and performance guarantees. And that the fourth was actually this one that you can see at the top that reads a track record of helping clients achieve business growth. But the thing that jumped the most is moved from the fourth position to the number one position was just that, the ability to track and demonstrate achievable business growth. And we will see this as a theme throughout that being able to prove results is fundamental. So you can see that how the pandemic just amplified this. We went and asked we asked which of the shifts that marketers will need that are most important for their agency partners to be able to help them address over the next few years. And 83% indicate that it's strategies to help move across multiple markets and regions, followed by the need for agencies to be strategic partners at 81%, growth as a leading priority for the CMO, and then the need for higher performing campaigns there at 56%. And what's interesting inside these priorities is that we then asked agencies about their ability to help their clients grow. And the self-assessment that they give us is that they are at 81%. 81% of the agencies say that they are good or excellent at delivering client growth and helping to meet those needs for growth. But at the same time, only 71% of brands indicated that they were satisfied with their agency's ability to help them grow. So there's this delta you can see between the agency's self-assessment and the brand's level of satisfaction. And we wanted to better understand that, and we wanted to understand what's the difference, accounting. It's only a 10% difference, which is, and it's still relatively high, but there's a lag there. And we wanted to better understand that. And so looking further into the data, what we came to understand is that the agencies are being scrutinized pretty heavily for the value that they bring, and the capabilities that are brought to bear to help deliver that value. So let me help you kind of better understand what I mean by this. When I say that agency value is under scrutiny, we looked specifically at the self ratings versus the satisfaction to help us understand this. And we see that across the board, if you look at the comparison of the left side of the page, which is the agency self rating, and the right hand side of the page, which is the brand satisfaction, you can see that 86% of agencies rate themselves as excellent or good at providing value to their clients, whereas only 52% of brands agree. And we look specifically at where that satisfaction may start to drop. We see around the area of cost and price and fee, where 78% of agencies believe that they're doing a good or excellent job at meeting the cost and price needs of their clients and delivering value. but only 47% of brands agree with this. So what would be the reason behind this? Well, part of it is the capabilities that brands are agencies rather are delivering, and what we see here is that brands needs, what are your organization's top challenges with your roster of marketing agencies? Those needs are enhanced capabilities. They're looking for more effective uses of data. So they're looking for the data and the analytics and the data sciences that Alistair was speaking about in his setup and in his research. They're looking for skills and talent. And so that constant competition for talent across all the different types of suppliers. They're looking for more innovation, and they're looking for creative vision. I think important here that it's not creative vision. I think we interpret is not so much we're looking for better creative, is we're looking for an overall perspective of how to innovate our business and how to innovate our way to go to market, as well as the creative in the work itself. So part of this delta was the financial piece of it, and the financial challenges and the capability limits that agencies are feeling right now are have everything in the world to do with how these expectations are built and how these expectations are being met. And so when we ask the agencies and the brands, what are your main challenges that are impacting your ability to meet client needs, particularly on the agency side? Pre-pandemic, it was cost management, commissions not aligned to the requirements, and balancing long and short-term and long-range, short-range priorities and objectives. But post-pandemic, we saw a little bit of a shift in this, and that the pressure had shifted, and it was more about the reduction of media and ad budgets, particularly for those agencies and companies that are compensated based upon a commission structure. The reduction of spending overall, and the need for flexibility. We saw constantly references for what we're calling flexibility, but it essentially translates to agencies being asked to understand their clients' current budget cuts, and to kind of figure out some variable billing structure over a period of time. So lots of disruption in terms of the economic piece of this, all wrapped up in the value that's brought. But so we're painting this picture of a lot of pressure and a lot of turbulence inside the pandemic. But what's really important is to understand how we shift forward. And again, looking at this data, kind of a pre-pandemic perspective and a post-pandemic perspective, really helps us understand this. And what we see is that brands are wanting to move towards a more outcomes-oriented or performance-oriented based models. In other words, they're looking for ways to create a win-win scenario. So we can see this by asking, what are the current and expected compensation structures for digital marketing agencies in the now and in the next few years. You can see again, the light green is the current, the dark green is the expected in the future, in the next 3 years. And you can see this complete shift where currently the licensing, a project model, and retainer fees, I can say across the board, retainer and project tend to be, when you look at the data across the globe and in different studies that I've seen, those tend to be the most popular. Followed by licensing, but with commission and performance playing a relatively smaller piece. But that completely flips in the future. You can see in the dark green that performance-based compensation is intended to grow, as is some elements of a commission structure, likely because of how simple it is and how straightforward it is. So this is where we start to look at this, this pressure situation and understand how do we evolve and how do we shift this for the future? How do we improve? And it really comes down to agencies that can embrace their own transformation and the transformation of their clients, and delivering on their client needs will better deliver on those needs. And what I mean by that, when we asked what benefits do you expect from an effective digital marketing agency partnership, we see that the partnership is really boosted, from an understanding of one another's needs. 63% of brand leaders stand ready to invest in agencies that can demonstrate a measurable outcome. It really underscores that shift towards outcomes and performance. And what benefits do they expect? They're looking for the ability to increase company profits. So connecting marketing activity to driving sales, to driving leads, demand gen, etc. Increased ROI for the marketing itself. The ability to keep pace with the shifts in customer behavior, the ability to develop more competitive strategies, the ability to meet customer needs and customer expectations in the future. But clearly the financial piece of it and the evidence piece of it being the top priority. So the most digitally mature agencies, and those that are really advancing their relationships, should innovate agency compensation in the future. And I think this is a really important point. And what I mean by this is thinking about the way that you're delivering value from not only a people perspective, but expanding it to other opportunities. So right now, agencies for the most part are compensated on a labor model for the people, or a commission model. But there's also the opportunity to expand and be compensated upon the technology, and create a compensation structure that accounts for the technology that's inside the agency, that accounts for the services that are combined with the technology that produce the outcomes. Alistair was very, I think, very pointed in his point of view about how the role of technology to help make agencies competitive, and that's 100% true. And it's also about the combination of services and technology together. One of those things alone is not enough. The two together are the most powerful expression. It's the platform and it's the people that come together to deliver the value or the performance, the outcomes that come from it. And agencies can think about the best way to get compensated in order to deliver that. So we see this in this data. 83% of brand marketers want their agency partners to address the need for customer first strategies across multiple markets, right? There's the ability to expand and help drive this partnership in other areas. 58% of the brand marketers plan to expand their brand over the next 3 years. And so agencies really need to be in a position to drive the rapid transformation. And fortunately, they're very like-minded in this, in that 81% of agencies are already beginning to adopt these strategies. The agency leaders are already think international expansion, and being able to work across multiple markets is an important priority for the roadmap for their success. So you're aligned, in this growth and in the ability to move forward. Digitally mature agencies should scale their operations as well. I talked about this in some research that I wrote called "Supercharge Your Marketing with Creatively Focused Digital Agencies." Can't even pronounce my own title. Supercharge your marketing with creatively focused digital agencies. And the point that we were making in this piece was that it was all about, again, the combination of talent and technology being able to help drive a growth mentality, and to deliver both a sense of scale and creativity, but creativity at scale. and the technology becomes a really important piece to do this. And the pandemic has only heightened our needs and to focus on upgrading technology and expanding those capabilities to expand our offering. So, for example, again, we're looking at the information pre-pandemic and post-pandemic, and you can see that things like adopting technology and replacing legacy systems, expanding technology and capability offerings to create new revenue opportunities, and creating new capabilities based upon the consumer adoption of emerging technologies all become very important or high and critical priority items post-pandemic, based upon how clients and agencies can meet those needs. Some areas to focus on. Visual media in this research is a really critical driver. It's critical to enhancing digital experiences and meeting customers' expectations. It's looking at our Forrester data, it's consumer technographics. It's clear that that high engagement media is what consumers are most interested in, and 77% of agencies inside this research tell us that the consumer preference for things like video and visually driven storytelling is really one of the most important trends that needs to be addressed. And 68% of brands consider the consumer preference for visual media to be one of their top priorities to address over the next 3 years. So, investing in production capabilities and investing in creative capabilities and matching that with data sciences and technology becomes a recipe for how to best address that. Engaging consumers online and keeping them loyal. Also very important, and it's areas like e-commerce, MarTech, and loyalty that are drivers and opportunities for agencies in the future. When we ask the brand marketers which of their partners they expect over the next 3 years to manage these three, by far and away, it's the external agency or some sort of combination or blend of an in-house resource along with their external agencies. 71% for e-commerce, 68% for MarTech, 64% for loyalty. So those three become really key capabilities and tactics that agencies can use in the future. So how do you do this? Well, I think it's about harnessing the power of automation and AI on the technology side. Leveraging tools like dynamic creative optimization engines connected into the DSP, experimenting in some emerging technologies, things like voice, conversational marketing, and then of course, fundamental to all of this, going all the way back to some of the early data talking about the need to prove the impact on the business comes from data and analytics being able to deliver attribution. So some recommendations, broad recommendations, thinking about agency's future, the next 12, 18, 24 months, drive demonstrable growth for brands, being able to demonstrate the impact that you have on the business through the campaign work that you do and the strategic work that you do is really fundamental to agency selection. I think that really comes down to the case study, and organizing your case studies in such a way that you're showing a clear strategy, solution, and most importantly, the impact, and that impact being not only a campaign impact and a marketing impact, but also a business impact. So building out demonstrable growth for current clients and prospective clients, number one. Two, harness automation and create space for innovation and driving development and upskilling across capabilities. So automation and innovation are words that have been around for quite a while. I think the automation piece was a bit sci-fi for the longest time, and really the pandemic has shown us the pathway for how automation can help not only scale our outputs, but also offset some of the pressure that's being felt in terms of from a resource standpoint, from a cost standpoint, and it really helps achieve the blend that I was talking about, the combination of high talent and giving them tools that take some of those basic tasks off of their plate so they can think and act more strategically on behalf of your clients. The data shows us that display and video capabilities and storytelling, visual storytelling capabilities are really important to meet consumers' needs and their preferences for the types of experiences that they'll gravitate towards. And so investments in production, partnerships in production, and technology to help scale production are really important in order to meet that need. And then we saw the growth initiative, being able to help clients expand across borders, across consumer sets, across regions, with their business and with their reach, meets their needs and their demands for growth and reasserting growth and growing and expanding their product footprint. So what can you do tomorrow? So those are kind of long range, things to be thinking about and investing in. What can you do tomorrow? Well, tomorrow you could identify 3 publishers or 3 partners to start a conversation with that can help you maximize your client's immediate geographical expansion. Where are some markets that some of your clients are interested in playing in? What partners can you talk to help start the migration or the discussion about how to move into those areas on behalf of that client? You could have that meeting tomorrow. Tomorrow you could establish some training and some certification strategies for getting together with your technology partners and trying to and coming up with a plan to upskill and train employees, and even your clients for that matter, involving and inviting your clients into this to help everyone's digital marketing understanding improve along the way. That's another meeting that you could hold tomorrow. And we talked about automation and technology and how we need to pair that with people. Sometimes that can be a scary notion. Sometimes employees see this as something that is intended to replace them or take away some of the parts of their job. Draft a vision for how automation and AI will fit within your agency, and it will help reduce that anxiety and help encourage them to take part of that and to be part of that vision. Something again that you can start tomorrow. So I hope that you can see that this research is really enlightening in terms of how agencies grow. It was a thrill to be able to work on this information and to help share this with you. And I'm going to turn things back over to Carrie at this time.
Thank you so much, Jay. Really appreciate your involvement and the incredible insights that you shared with us. I wanted to just quickly point out to the viewers that there is an opportunity for you to ask questions. Once the panel discussion is done, you can direct these questions to anyone on this call, myself, Alistair, Jay, as well as the panelists. So please feel free to leave those questions behind, and hopefully we'll have a chance to get to them. But I am now joined by my esteemed panelists. Are they on the call? Yes, they are. Can you all hear me, see me, panelists? Oh, they're coming now. There we go. Hi, everyone.
Hey, Carrie.
Hi.
Hi, Carrie.
Hi, everyone.
Hi.
So I'm actually going to ask each of you to please introduce yourselves, tell us who you are, where you've been working, or are currently working. So maybe Ashish, let's start with you.
Yeah, thanks, Gary. Thanks for having me here. I'm Ashish Williams, CEO of Mediacom South Africa. I'm based out of Joburg, and really excited to be on this panel. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ashish. Let's hand over to Charmaine.
Hi, Kerry. Yeah, thanks very much for having me. I'm Charmaine, MD of Jellyfish in South Africa, and it's really good to be here. Excited to be chatting and covering off everything that's been discussed right now.
Thank you so much, Charmaine. And finally, let's hand over to Paula.
Hi, Kerry. Thanks so much. Hi, Ashish and Charmaine. Great to see you again. I'm Paula Hully. I'm the CEO of the Interactive Advertising Bureau in South Africa, and it's fantastic to be here. Super to hear Jay's insights. Really great to see the report come alive. So thank you.
Thank you so much. So let's actually start with Jay, or at least Forrester's research. And I love what you said, Paula, bringing it to life. I'd love to hear from each of you. What is your response to this research? What are your thoughts? Just off the top of your heads. Maybe Paula, let's start with you.
Great. Well, I think it's super to see Google and Forrester partner. I think the insights were incredible, really easy to read. And I think today, seeing Jay's presentation and seeing those they're not quick, but the 3 steps you can take tomorrow, like book the meeting. I think you just need to start if you haven't started already, or maybe there was something fresh there that you can add to your mix. I think for me, certainly based on the work from IAB and from our global offices, something that really stood out was, I think it was the page around the 7 top challenges that brands experience with their roster of marketing agencies. And the number 1 piece was effectively using data, sort of customer data. But the one that was number 2, that sat right underneath that, was skills and talent development. And I don't think we can really separate the 2. And for me, that was such a critical piece of the paper. And I think as we all had quite a big year last year, big in terms of terrifying. I think a lot of us needed to look at where we could cut costs, where we could look at the margin, and often things like marketing or training can be put aside. But I think for this critical journey, I think skills development and training, and Ali mentioned it as well, and yourself, Kerry, I just think, that's number 1. And the IAB did a digital skills gap analysis. And of course, data and analytics came up as the top gap that we're all looking to cover. So I think, that really did stand out for me. And I think the other thing is around modeling, agency models. And interestingly, in our IAB ad spend report that's coming out this week, we also noticed an increase in agencies offering more performance-based modeling in terms of their offering to their clients. So yeah, very, very interesting. I could go on forever, but let me stop there. Thanks.
Thank you so much. I really love that there's, so much interplay between, different research, which really, I think, makes this so much stronger. So let's hand over to Ashish to give us his thoughts.
Yeah, it was very, very interesting. And not that I was surprised about it, but it just kind of a validation about what we are seeing around in our ecosystem, right? And if you look at that slide, I don't remember the slide number, but it's the disconnect slide where the discussion about value came, right? And where agency sees the value, whereas the client sees the value. Very interesting. And sometimes as an agency, we believe that we go on a tangent of more impressing our clients without actually taking into account the vision we have for the clients to kind of grow them, right? And specifically in the digital world. So it was very interesting insights, Kerry. And I would kind of concur with all the findings that that's exactly the state of the nation or state of the media industry is, and specifically in relation to the client.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing that. Over to you, Charmaine.
Yeah, I mean, I was definitely concurring with a lot of what was being said, rang true for me, nodding my head a lot of times, even from when Alistair was talking right through to Jay's feedback. I think and to what Ashish is actually saying around the value, that I sat up straight and said, okay, this is definitely an interesting topic and one that we need to explore, because obviously talking about what is value, what is the value of an agency, can it just be linked to performance? Is it a bigger conversation? If we're going to embark on digital transformation, that means that we need to understand digital maturity. That means that we need to do preparation, get buy-in from the business. How do we charge for that? It can't be linked to performance from day one. How do we actually convince them, to the brands, to put in the investment up front, and all of that? So it is definitely a bigger conversation, but nonetheless, it needs to happen, and it needs to happen now. The digital transformation needs to start. For me, I think the key thing in digital transformation, and the thing that underpins all the research, is the fact that leadership, and all of us on this call, we need to know that in order to shift, it actually requires a culture shift, both from the agency side as well as the brand side. And we're the custodians of making that happen, driving that change happening. And so, again, like Paula says, I can talk forever on it, but we have an opportunity to dive a little bit deeper into some of these subjects a bit later.
Absolutely. And yeah, I couldn't agree more around that collective responsibility that we have. Obviously, as pointed out earlier when Alistair did his introduction today, is just, agencies on the call. So really an opportunity for us to have that conversation. And like I said, take this further, not just today, but once we all leave. But as a segue, Charmaine, to your point you made about brands, I'd love to hear from all of you, at least this is probably more relevant to Ashish and Charmaine. How important is digital marketing transformation to your clients? And what challenges are you facing here? So it's a two-part question, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
Okay. Shaman, you want to go first?
I can jump in. I mean, we can tag team here.
Yeah.
No problem.
Ladies first.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it goes without saying that it's definitely important to our clients. It doesn't matter. I mean, every single client that we speak to, that we've been working with, understands the importance of digital marketing transformation. And the challenges that we're facing are their challenges, really. It's the challenges that they have internally. And like I said before, it's mostly sort of in the buy-in from leadership and the buy-in from the owners and the custodians of the budget. So there's a lot of convincing, I think, that needs to happen. And I think the other challenges are possibly around truly understanding what transformation actually means, and that's linked to the upskilling, I suppose. Everything's actually all connected that Paul is referring to. So I think as agencies, we have a real responsibility to actually educate and understand the role that we play in educating our brands in both what digital transformation involves, as well as then educating their people themselves, I suppose. Yeah, Ashish, I think you can jump in, and then obviously I can jump in again.
Sure. So exactly what Charmaine was mentioning, like it's the buzzword, right? Which we are hearing from the clients, that how do we take them into the digital journey? And specifically when you start doing unpacking of the questions, right? So Kerry, we use a lot the BCG Digital Maturity Index, right? And then when we tell them like, okay, you need to get the score 4 out of 4, and you're at the nascent stage, right? That's when it sparks, oh, we are left behind. But I guess the question here is not about left behind, but the question is about, do you want to transform yourself from an e-commerce angle? Because whenever we talk about the digital transformation, it is always about, oh, so how can I uplift my online commerce sales? But I think that's the very end part of it, right? That's the culmination of it. But and therefore, when we talk about that you cannot only drive a car looking at rear view mirror, right? So you want to transform yourself, but the infrastructure, the technology, all needs to come into play, and as well as the client structure. It cannot be anymore that when we're talking to the client, they're giving us, okay, fine, this campaign needs to go on air, and then we will do the creative, and then we will do the adaptation of our creatives accordingly. But client and agency coming together and sitting with us, real-time decision making, right? It cannot go through the hoops of like, okay, so the marketing manager is confirming, then we are going into the head of marketing getting confirmation. The things needs to happen now. And I see that's kind of a barrier, because definitely it requires us to change, which we are changing. But at the same time, it does require the clients to also restructure or relook at things to make it real digital transformation. It was very interesting for me. I was looking at the quote, and it says that if you're a caterpillar, right, if you're talking about transformation, you should really become a butterfly, not a speedy caterpillar, right? So it's important that we're looking to become more butterfly rather than to build up our speed here.
Thank you. I actually really, if you know me and you've worked with me, I love analogies. So that's a really beautiful one, Ashish. And, if I may just kind of interject there, I think what's also interesting in terms of what both you and Charmaine picked up on is that there are nuances when it comes to the actual meaning of digital marketing transformation. And I'm actually going to open this question up to everyone, Paula, including yourself, is what does digital marketing transformation actually mean for you? Because it means, to Ashish's point, some clients just see it as, I just need to upweight some budget on, my e-commerce platforms, and, then my sales will increase. But obviously it's more encompassing than that. So yeah, maybe Paula, if you can just, if we could start with you on that.
Great. I think I'd love to, I've got a slide that if I can magically manage to share, I think it actually looks like a caterpillar. So I think it's a good, I think I really like Ashish's piece there. So I think if I remember, share screen, click on that, share. So I don't know if you can see my caterpillar slide. Can you see a slide?
Yes.
No. Okay.
Yes.
It's got brands. It's the indirect brand economy. Can you see that?
Yes.
Okay. Fantastic. So I won't spend too much time here, but just in terms of what digital transformation means, certainly from an IAB point of view, IAB Global put out, I think, their first piece of research probably in 2018 that speaks to 100-year-old industry, which we could probably call the indirect brand economy, which over the last 10 years has slowly morphed or quickly morphed into this ever-stacking direct brand economy. So if we look at the indirect brand economy, where we've come from, I'm sure most of you, the agencies on this call, recognize that this could look like, especially the gray block on the left, could look like your typical client's internal structure. So very siloed, different departments sitting in different areas. There's be a team that would brief, the brand element, the marketing team would then brief the advertising agency, who would then source the publisher network. That would then turn up in the consumer's life, hopefully at the right time, but probably not. And then, the retailer would go to the retailer and make a purchase. I think, as we know now, and actually this stack has been updated, so it's even slightly more complex. If we look at our clients and our brands and the look on their faces, it's probably because they don't realize that their job has changed quite considerably. And with the consumer, and the Forrester report speaks to consumer-driven business and having a plan to meet that through transformation. If you want to achieve digital transformation, you really are. Actually, I've got a note here from the IAB Europe transformation playbook, which was, in a world of tremendous competition for brands, selling has become a form of sophisticated dialogue that requires commitment and precision, and that's to have that one-on-one conversation with consumers at scale that Ali spoke to. So I think from the caterpillar, if that looks a bit like one, to the butterfly, maybe that's a good way to sort of describe what's sharing. But yeah, I think for IAB, just the business of our business has changed, and I don't think some of us realize just how much. The butterfly took off, and if we're on it, great. But if not, we probably need to find a way. And I think 360 million people came online last year. I think those great stats that say 10 years of innovation in 6 months happened in e-commerce. So yeah, I mean, everything that Jay spoke to, and Ali and yourself, Kerry, around, people, product, platform, whether it's culture and system or story and system or whatever it might be in your language from an agency point of view. I just think, it's been captured so well. But for IAB, those 2 slides kind of really speak to that. And we've got some great sort of reports that speak to what we're chatting about today that we can share. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank you for sharing your caterpillar too. That was completely unscripted for the audience. So, Charmaine, I'm going to hand over to you in terms of your kind of definition of digital marketing transformation.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that butterfly is definitely quite daunting, and I think it's our job as agencies to help brands navigate that. And so digital transformation is it's our responsibility to almost create that starting point. And so I think digital itself is multifaceted, so it intersects with all the operations of a business, not just marketing, not just digital, but where do people start? And a maturity framework is what we need to use. And I know Ashish, you already referred to the BCG one that the Google framework, and so we at Jellyfish have kind of almost evolved that, taken it and evolved it to beyond, to include things like SEO and content and websites and so on and so forth, and kind of created something that is a roadmap. So the digital maturity framework isn't a strategy itself. It's more the vehicle, the sort of aperture that you take a strategy and you put it through, and on the other side, you've got what you can execute on. But what it does do, that I think a lot of consulting firms don't do for brands, is it gives you the how. It's that really, really tangible thing, so just like the other, the original maturity framework, it's a whole bunch of questions and you ask really good questions and you dig deep. This just expands on that. It's more questions and it really dictates where you need to focus. So at the end of it, you understand where you may be falling behind or ahead. And when we talk to our brands and we look back on those that have really gone on a good journey and we've managed to sort of help them grow, expand and mature digitally, they always say that preparation is key. So preparing, doing the assessment, and also understanding where they are benchmarked within their industry against their competitors, helps them create that roadmap. So digital transformation is unique. It's almost like a fingerprint. It's different for every single client. And I think we need to know how to navigate that for our clients. And this framework helps you do that. So you do the assessment and then you say, okay, this is your starting point and this is what your roadmap looks like. And this is your starting point and this is what your roadmap looks like. So it can be a complex or a simple thing. And it's always going to be a really, really long journey. And it depends on what the client's investment potential is and so on and so forth. And again, I don't want to get too much into the detail, but that's kind of what it means for us. It's really taking something that's very, very complicated, putting it through this framework that's been created and coming on the other side with something that's extremely tangible, extremely measurable, that can be navigated and gives good solutions to the clients. But you need the agency to be able to do that, and agencies need to be able to partner with people that can do that. So I hope that answers the question, Gary, but that's kind of how, that's how I understand it. That's how I look at it, because that's how we tackle it at Jellyfish.
No, that absolutely does. Thank you for that. And I know that we've referenced this digital marketing maturity survey quite a lot on this conversation, and Sian on my team is sharing the link to that survey where Google partnered with BCG. If anyone's interested, just keep a lookout on the Q&A section of this, because obviously a critical framework that, obviously is available to everyone, and really great to hear, Charmaine, you're using that to help guide conversations with customers around digital marketing transformation. So quickly, Ashish, if you can just give us your quick point of view on what it means, digital marketing transformation means for you.
Yeah, for me, if as you mentioned, right, that you loved the analogy, it's very close for me. It's like you're changing the wheels while you're driving the car here, right? So there's never going to be a perfect world that, we are going to hit, or we have digitally transformed ourselves. So what we are trying to bring in is that the maturity or the sophistication of, if you look at in the last 10, 20 years with the brand marketeers, a lot of studies have been done in terms of justification of television, their spends with the sales uplift, right? So we know like what is the ROI of each of the platforms. And digital has been something like, okay, fine, my money was 100, and actually you're telling me that you're going to take 40% of it and spend it on digital, but you're not going to give me a GRP or a reach, right? You're still going to give me likes, engagement, which I can't kind of measure in singular metrics, right? And that's what we have been kind of trying to put together, like how we can have a very similar methodology in terms of the GRPs and the reach, which we can get from the digital and measure in the same way, so that the marketers do not believe that, okay, something immeasurable is happening, there is no kind of seamlessness there. So that is definitely we are helping in terms of changing the wheels while we are driving the car. And at the same time, from our side is like, I'm sure like a lot of agencies are on this call, you can ask and go into the ad ops team. The naming convention, that itself is like, it's like it goes from A to Z, right? And if one has to pull out the data to build the insights. So for example, I was speaking to my head of digital, and he was mentioning less than 1%. There's so much of data. There is so much of data. There's big data, everything, but less than 1% it gets used. And why is that? I think that's the question we need to ask, is because that it's not harmonious. It's not making sense, because you cannot look at those data and look at it together. So that's the second definition. I have a multiple definition, and I suit it based on what the challenge is. And third thing is that a lot of clients are actually looking at prospecting versus remarketing, right? And there is not enough budget in digital where you can do both. But then how do you connect the CRM, of which you have so much, like such rich data there, and how are you able to connect to our data management platforms, and so that we are able to do more remarketing and adapt our creatives based on the life stage they are in. Are they already a consumer, or they are going to repeat their purchases? So these 2-3 things kind of defines the digital transformation, Kerry. And we ask these kind of questions to our clients: where do you see these things? And we help them guide in terms of this journey.
Thank you so much for sharing that. I'm going to move on to Paula, because obviously you have a very interesting, I guess, bird's eye view, across the whole ecosystem. So from your vantage point, how do you see this impacting the entire ecosystem when we talk about digital marketing transformation? And obviously, your local, I guess, skew on that.
Sure, yeah. We did a survey with our members. So for those of you who don't know, the Interactive Advertising Bureau, the IAB, we look after the media and marketing digital industry. So that's our remit, and to create benchmarking, thought leadership guidelines in the space, very much around digital advertising. So we did a survey with our members, which, as Kerry said, we've got a nice broad set of membership. So we feel quite a full part of the ecosystem. So technology, platforms, agencies, both media, creative, digital, traditional, as well as brands, who am I leaving out? Education, publishers. So a really nice set of members. And we sent out a survey last year. I think it was in July 2020. So right in the middle of, and we asked them, in terms of tackling and addressing the big issues, which is one of the key sort of pillars that we look at to support our members. So in asking them what we should prepare for. Interestingly, at the time, digital transformation was number 3. in marketing. But data governance was number one, and skills and education was number two. And again, the conversation keeps coming to the same place where, in terms of what Ashish is saying around how do we manage, what do we do with all this beautiful data? How do we make sure that we can utilize it and apply it at the right time in an automated way, but with creative storytelling? So I think it's quite interesting in terms of our member set, which we call the Big Tent, because it's kind of got like the full industry within that, really looking at data governance being number one, education number two, digital education for skills development, and marketing transformation is number three. So I think what's critical is that it's certainly top of everyone's mind right across the ecosystem. And I think as part of that, what we've noticed is that in terms of solving these problems, because I see a question on the panel, I'm not sure I'm supposed to refer to it, but when does it end? When have we transformed? How can we get to the end of this show? And I think, the point of digital transformation is that it is reaching the customer, the consumer, and the consumer is changing. We're changing. We want things to be different. So how do we align our communication on behalf of our brand to have these personalized individual conversations at scale? And so in solving these problems, like three that our members are asking us to look at, we really try and bring that ecosystem around the table together. So not just solving for one, but actually listening, to the full thing. And in those conversations, there've been some great, not reveals, but just some good discussions. And again, and I know it's in the report and it's been in all the talks around, relationship development and the partnerships to do that. And I think in terms of how this impacts the ecosystem and where we go from here, and even the 3 steps that Jay mentioned, like what you can do tomorrow, like that takes great partnerships and great brands. And I think I'm hoping the likes of these talks, with Google and the research with Forrester, or bureaus like the IAB or the ACA can bring people together to have those conversations, because you can't really, you can't do it alone. But it's already impacting everyone. I think the consumer is well on its way on the butterfly. I won't use that analogy again. And those pieces need to be taken into account. I think I'll end there. But really, finding the right matches and the right partnerships, I think is what will be required to make headway. And I think Ashish, you mentioned definitions, and so our agency council under the leadership of Robin Campbell from Publicis Machine, we're actually working on a set of definitions for digital product services because everyone, whether you're in a pitch or whether you're putting together a proposal or whether you're speaking to your client, I think everyone's using a different language. In terms of measurement, our measurement council is working with, whether it's Talma or the PRC in terms of Project Fusion, trying to see how we can pull data together in order to speak a common language from measurements. I think you've hit the nail on the head there. So I think measurement and relationships and education, again, I think those are the 3 areas that should be impacted, that we should be working with. Sorry. Thank you.
And just because the topic of education and skills has come up quite often, and this is not a scripted question, but I'd love to just spend a couple of minutes just talking about as an agency or as groups of agencies working together in this industry, are we doing enough to grow the skill sets in our market? Ashish, Charmaine, I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
We can always do more. It's a very passionate topic, certainly of mine. We had actually started an academy that we'd run for a couple of years pre-COVID, and had just gained some good momentum, mostly on the paid media side, and we wanted to expand it, and it was really more possible face-to-face, and so we put it on hold during COVID, but we've actually just given in and said we have to make it work regardless, so we're picking it up again. So it's extremely important, and the academy and the aspiration, or the big goal is to educate as many people as possible and just put them out into the market, for us to employ, and but for everybody really, because there isn't enough education, and that's obviously from the ground up, but I don't think we're doing enough to educate our own people as well. We take that quite seriously globally. At Jellyfish, we've got a lot going on. We actually encourage people to take ownership of their own, and we allocate certain time to people and allow them the time to actually do their own learning and development. And I encourage all agencies to do the same for them. Allow the time, bake it into your commercials, however you work out the profitability for your own businesses to ensure that happens, because it really is important. Yeah. But yeah, I don't think we're doing enough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So from my side, from a Mediacom side, I mean, we look at these things like at the 3 level, Kerry. It's one is, of course, from an education side, like GradX program. So the new people who are joining our industry, setting them up for success. So we started off with this 12 trainee or internship, if I can say, 2 years back, and I think now this year we are doing 35. And we have also taken markets like Nigeria, Kenya on board as well, where we are giving this thing. So it's about a 1-year training program, which we actually put them, because media sometimes can be very overwhelming, right? So they have to learn so many things and understand the big picture. So that part we are investing heavily. The second part, which we are also investing heavily, is around our traditional media stuff, right? Because we are part of the same industry and we can't play on 40% of the pitch. We have to play on the 100%. Is to upskill the people who are in the traditional media. And we are spending quite a millions actually into that, where we are upskilling them, because it's not that you are going to be digital, right? And that's why you should be digitally upskilling. Even if you're doing television, you need to understand digital. You need to understand where we are going. So, and everyone has to play a part there. So that is the second part, where we are bringing them up to the speed. And the third part is about reskilling, right? Which is already the digital natives which are there. So of course, like we do a lot of program with you. We also have like 7,000 hours of training, which is already there. And as any market evolves or do something new, we are able to kind of latch onto it quite quickly. Giving an example, something like a Clubhouse, which came all of a sudden, and it's been kind of spreading like wildfire, right? And like, but how do you advertise, right? It's a great content platform. So those things to adapt, and communicating to the client that where does that puzzle actually fit in the larger picture, right? So we don't want to be just a digital innovator and, oh, this is a new opportunity and comes in. But till the time we do not show the bigger picture to our client, all of this thing becomes then incidental and can lose the power of it. And they are very powerful, actually. They lose their power if they don't fit into the larger picture, what we are trying to take the client into that journey. So that's in a nutshell from a education angle.
Thank you. And thank you so much, Charmaine and Ashish, for sharing the amazing work that both your organizations are doing. And I obviously share the sentiment that this is ongoing, and there is a lot of work and effort and resource behind both your separate strategies in terms of upskilling. So thank you again for sharing that. I know that we've got 5 minutes left, and we have a couple of questions from the audience. So I'm actually going to just ask Alistair to come back on the call if he is there. I'm hoping he is. There was a question. Yes, there you are. Hi, Alistair. Welcome back. There was a question for you. I'm going to quickly read it out. And it's for Dr. Alistair McQueen. Sorry. What is?
I actually answered the question, Kerry.
Oh, did you?
I responded to Chris. Yeah. So Chris had a question about.
Okay.
Yeah, what is the single biggest opportunity for Google? And I think for me, we keep talking about the fact that traditional and digital platforms must be seen as, complementary, because I think both are stronger together. So I think what we need is increased belief around the complementarity nature of these two worlds. And I think for us, one of the many upsides of working from home has been a surge in search behavior. Consumers are spending a lot more time online, and we've also seen a growth in video. So I think we've seen in multiple studies how video through YouTube can help extend TV reach. And, so I think that is an opportunity. Search is a big opportunity. So as we think about how do we deploy machine learning to optimize for customer objectives, let's think about those two platforms as key opportunities. Because obviously, if we hit objectives, that's good for media agencies, also good for Google. So in a nutshell, that's kind of where we see the opportunities.
Thank you so much. And then there's a question on the panel, and this is for everyone. The industry has taken enormous strides over the past 20 years in digital transformation. What would you consider an end game? So I know, Paula, you sort of touched on this, but I'd love to hear from everyone else. What does a completely digitally transformed industry or business look like? And I see Chris made a joke. Is this when all ad spend is placed with Google? And he's obviously making a joke. So, yes, that's not the end goal. But yeah, maybe Charmaine, let's start with you on this.
Well, I suppose it doesn't really end. In my opinion, it doesn't really end. But I mean, if you look at it right now, we want to be as multi-moment as possible. And I know that's the phrase that's coined, with the current framework that we're using, but even with the evolved framework that we're using. And so what that looks like is, we've got the 4 pillars that we've kind of narrowed it down to. So we've got the people, the creativity to execution, we've got the technology, and we've got the data. So from the people side, you want to be as trained up and integrated and collaborative as possible. So, if you want to be fully digitally transformed, you want to make sure that you've got agencies, partners, your people internally, everybody is working in the most connected, collaborative, synced up way possible in the most efficient, cost-effective way possible. When it comes to execution, you want to be the best structured, the best using all of your efficiencies possible, your creative as sort of on the mark as possible. Your technology, you're using a seamless stack of technology that's all talking to each other. Your data is activating perfectly. Your AI is working perfectly. Your automation is working perfectly. So that's kind of what the perfect digital sort of transformation goal would be. But that will always move, because all of those things that I've just mentioned are always evolving and changing as we move. And so that's kind of my answer, I suppose. So it's those are kind of the goals right now, but those goals will always change as long as you kind of know what those changes are. So yeah. Mm-hmm.
It's a great question from Chris, right? And I was thinking about it while Charmaine was saying that change is the only constant we have seen, and this journey will continue. But if you ask me personally, I don't see an end coming, but you will realize when we are coming closer to it. And for me, the vision is always when our communication, marketing communication, becomes valuable to our consumer. That's what I would kind of define the vision where we have arrived, actually, because right now lots of mistrust in digital ecosystem, a lot of different direction. We as consumers get spammed with so many ads and things like that. And when people are going to do a Google search, right? And that time they wouldn't have seen any media. They would be actually ordering the brand from the Google search directly from the devices. That is the time when they should recall your brand. And we should be always communicating when they start seeing the value in our communication, be always present there. And that's, for me, is the true purpose for this industry, that when we become valuable, it's not like we are doing advertising just for selling the brand, but actually becoming more valuable. So that's how I will define this moment, or signals to come closer to the transformation.
And I think that is, oh, sorry, Alistair, do you want to go quickly?
Yeah, maybe one final thought from me. I was going to say, when you have achieved full automation, when your data is completely integrated, when you're able to serve up a single customer view, when you're able to work out customer lifetime value, when you're actually able to use automation to drive efficiencies. Because remember, the 3 criticisms that marketers and media and advertising practitioners face is we're not commercial enough, we're not accountable enough, and then we don't speak the language of the boardroom, which is business impact. So technology allows us to answer all those questions with confidence. We're able to attribute everything, from marketing campaign to business results. So I think for me, if you're able to achieve those, then you've reached the highest level of digital marketing maturity. So Chris, I think if you play around with different digital marketing maturity models, it spells out very clearly what the nascent stage looks like and what the ultimate stage, which we believe is the holy grail, if there ever was one. So yeah, good luck with that.
So on the topic of Holy Grail, I think that we have actually gone 2 minutes over, and we didn't get to all the questions. I mean, I think all of us on this panel could be here for another 2 hours on this topic. So I quickly just wanted to thank our amazing panelists and speakers, Jay and Alistair. It was definitely, as Alistair put it, riveting. And we are looking forward to taking this conversation forward with all of you. We will be sharing the resources, and just wanted to thank you all for taking the time out of your day to be here and engage with us, and get ready for what the future has to hold, because as I think many of the panelists pointed out, change is constant, and we'll continue to see the change happening. So thank you so much, everyone, and we will hopefully see you soon. Stay safe out there.
Thanks everyone.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.